Welcome back to my series on Taylor Parker. If you haven't seen the rest of my series, go catch up. Otherwise, this video will probably not make any sense. Despite everything the paramedics and Dr. Heron did, Braxton's condition kept deteriorating. She was around 35 weeks gestation. She weighed about 7 pounds, measured 18.75 inches, and she had no abnormalities. She was completely viable. In the right hands, with the right care, she could have lived, but she'd been deprived of oxygen for too long and she suffered extensive brain damage. Braxton Sage Hancock was pronounced dead at 1:22 p.m. on October 9th of 2020. And here's why that matters so much legally, and we'll come back to it. But the paramedics restored a pulse in that ambulance, a heartbeat. And medical experts would establish that you cannot restore a heartbeat in a baby who was never alive. A stillborn infant could not have been brought back across that timeline. So Braxton had been born alive. She lived for a matter of hours. Once the hospital confirmed that Taylor hadn't given birth, she was taken into custody and booked. When Wade arrived at that hospital, expecting to meet Taylor because she was supposedly being induced, officers put him in handcuffs in the hallway, and he had no idea why. His first thought was maybe he'd broken some law with that botched hog sale. When they told him what was actually going on, though, he was floored. He explained he was only there because Taylor told him she was getting induced that day, and that he genuinely had no idea what happened. And I want to be really clear about Wade. I know there's been a lot of talk about Wade. Wade was never charged with anything. He was never the subject of any criminal investigation. He was a victim of Taylor's lies too, and I'm sure he has a lot of regrets for not being more aware and more vigilant and proactive. And we will talk about the way that he has kind of tried to rectify that towards the end of the deep dive. But like even in comments like you see here on Facebook, he seems to be aware that people are chatting about the fact that this is not a real pregnancy, and he is defending Taylor. Now, who knows if Wade actually wrote that comment or if Taylor did? Obviously, we would put nothing past her at this point. In initial interviews, Taylor's account was all over the place. At first, she said she got into an altercation with Reagan, that they fought, that Reagan grabbed her, called her a liar, that they both hit each other, and that Reagan hit her head on a table. She claimed Reagan was so badly injured that she begged Taylor to remove the baby right then and there to save it. In other words, Taylor was casting herself as a hero. It really baffles me the way that people lie. I find watching people like this and Casey Anthony, and the way they just lie like it's their language. It really baffles me because I just think, like, what is your end goal? What do you think you're gonna get away with here? What do you really think is gonna happen? That they're gonna be like, oh yeah, well that makes sense. That actually makes perfect sense. But then when they asked about the cuts to Reagan's neck, Taylor insisted that she'd set the scalpel down before she left, basically implying that Reagan had somehow done that to herself. The investigators were not buying any of it, obviously. One of them gave this long, almost gentle speech asking whether Taylor was a cold-blooded murderer or whether this was depression or some kind of mental break, naming conditions like Munchausen by proxy, like trying to give her a door to walk through. And that's a common tactic in interrogations. They will kind of give you an option that like leads you to the truth without admitting you're a monster. If you can kind of cop out and say, oh, well, yeah, it was this that made me do it, but I did it. Kind of like when Chris Watts was like, oh, she hurt the girls, so then I had to hurt her. Like, it's obviously bullshit, but the way that the detectives kind of give them that option, it's a way to kind of reel them in, bait and switch them into eventually telling the truth. Like, if you can get them to admit a little bit, then you can kind of snowball that into getting to the actual truth. Regardless, Taylor kept insisting that she didn't kill anybody. She kept saying, I didn't kill anybody. I didn't kill anybody. And she waived extradition and was transferred from Oklahoma to Texas on October 14th. She was booked into the Valley County Bi-Station Detention Center and held without bond. The Texas Rangers conducted 2 recorded interviews, the first on October 9th and the second on the 14th, after the autopsy results raised serious questions that her story couldn't answer. Across about 5 hours of questioning, she told wildly different versions. Many of these are available on YouTube, and if you want those clips, just let me know and I can probably share them here and kind of give you like a more concise, so you're not trying to dig and find all of the various interviews and clips. If that is something you're interested in, let me know.